The world of watches is filled with just theft and deceit and fraud and counterfeit goods and deception and braggadocious, horrible behavior that almost can ruin this industry. But there's such beauty in the watch industry. There's such beauty in a simple swatch or in a complicated zenith. There's such beauty behind these brilliant minds that have devoted their lives to expressing themselves through these micro-mechanical pieces of, art. Right?
There is a world outside of the evil that it's the most I don't even know the correct word, but the split between the terrible side of watches and the great side of watches is very strong.
So let's talk about that today. What is up, Watch Fam? I am Christian, the curator of the Theo and Harris Vintage Watch Shop.
My name is Michael, and this video is sponsored by Ritual.
More on our friends over at Ritual later.
Yeah.
Today's episode is a great one. Today's episode is about all that is horrible with the watch world, both vintage and modern. We're going to detail some of the fraud that has gone on in the last couple of weeks in the watch industry that has been reported on, but I don't think we've dwelled on it enough, really, in many ways,
we have some of the biggest fraud in watch world history.
So we're going to detail 3 instances of fraud: the Timepiece gentleman Anthony Ferrer theft, the Adam Levine Frankenwatch fraud problem that is worse than it sounds,
yep.
and then this Omega fraud.
This is the biggest one I'm talking about.
Omega themselves, one of the most prolific brands of all time, was taken for millions of dollars, and if it can happen to Omega, it can happen to you. We're also going to talk about some of the toxic kind of energy in the watch community, right? We're going to talk about that there are some shitheads here, and it shouldn't go unsaid. Right? It shouldn't go unsaid that that's bad behavior, but it does exist, and I could see how it could turn you guys off. And then we're talking about everything that's good with the watch world, why you really ought to stay, right? Guys like Michael, right?
Yeah.
Good, just so many beautiful people in this community. We're going to talk about a couple of them, and why they promote a healthy community, and then finally some of the beauty in the craft, right? The actual watchmakers themselves, be them on an independent level or conglomerate owned, that are live in the service of the consumer, right? They are redefining what we thought is possible, and they're delivering more and more to you, and just kind of like scratching all the itches, right? They're really pushing the boundaries and making this hobby all the richer in knowledge, richer in history, and I think that's so positive. So there's so much here in the community. I get that, I get it, but you really ought to stick around because there's so much beauty too. So let's get into it. Let's start off with just the apples. Not that they are malicious, but they're people that aren't looking for something to gain. They're not looking to deceive and hurt you.
Okay.
But God, they're toxic to the community. Let's talk about that for a second. It's not so much of it's a smaller box.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, we are us on camera. We are Christian and Michael for sure. This is who we are. We do certainly play a role sometimes where we make fun a little bit and we make fun of each other and of ourselves and everything like that. And sometimes, right, I'll play the role of the pretentious douchebag, which I guess suppose
you play that role.
Play that role really well. Ha ha. Fuck you.
Hey, cut the camera.
But the reality is that one of the things that I'm most proud of about Theo and Harris, about this company, and about everyone that is at this company, whether it's Michael or whether it's Aaron or whether it's my mom, or whether it's any of the people that have worked with us on the creative end, I am just so proud that we are, as I view it, a very positive and nice force in the watch industry. We are informative, yes, but we are kind to our fans, both online and in person.
Yes.
And I think that we do, promote a culture of kindness. I think that we do, right? We want everyone to be well-informed and nice. And because that's the kind of event that I want to be at, right? Yep. That's the kind of world that I would like to live in. That doesn't mean that we always agree on everything, because we don't, but it's watches. And if you think that your watch makes you better than someone else, then you're okay, to put it simply, you're not welcome here, right? But that is not true about a lot of other communities that have created.
But it has to do with our first subject, Nico Leonard.
No, Nico's a great guy, right?
Just kidding.
But there are other communities out there, and just individual people that individual pieces of shit that gravitate toward these communities.
Yeah, you're not naming anyone particular. You're talking about a specific.
Exactly. And these people exist at a lot of different kinds of events. But if you haven't experienced it goes something like this. right? La-di-da, Michael and Christian are nicer. Michael's nicer. Normal person is nice, whether they're wearing their Explorer or a cool Breguet or whatever they're wearing. And someone else who clearly kicks their dog when they go home gets joy out of putting you down.
Oh, Michael, you got an Explorer. I just thought you were more into watches. Like, I don't know why you wore the Explorer tonight.
Exactly.
So, what?
You got a sub. Cool.
Oh, so you both wore Rolexes to a watch event? Like, why?
Exactly.
What?
And it doesn't just happen and when it happens to us, I don't even care because I say, well, at least we can handle it. Yeah. But I feel so bad for just the watch guy that like drove from maybe 30, 40 minutes, an hour, 2 hours away to come to an event and to get spoken down to. And I think that I'm probably right when I say it is a little bit more of a metropolitan phenomenon than it is really elsewhere. So when I find that when people are driving into the city for an event, they're coming in very just hopeful.
I'm from the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, like, and they're showing up with their really cool Longines or their really cool, Rado that their dad gave them or their whatever, a whole host of just really cool watches, whatever it may be. And sure someone's going to be nasty.
Yeah.
Right? And it's terrible behavior. It's terrible behavior.
This small story is not about watches, but it's similar. I was in an event where there was a bunch of people and they were joking that if they got in trouble, if they didn't do everything right, their life would be over because they'd have to get a Camry. Right. And then we all left together. And I got in my Camry and drove away. And I was like, wow, that was wild.
Exactly. People definitely, there's a place of insecurity in a lot of collector communities. That's, for a lot of people, the reason they buy so much. But there's definitely this place of insecurity that they choose to kind of deal with by lashing out on people that don't deserve it. And that's really sad. And I hate that. And I think that we represent the opposite of that. And I'm proud of that. But it's definitely something that sucks about this community. Even worse is when the malintent, when the malice is not just to put you down, but to take you for something, right? To take you for money is really what has happened so often in the watch business. These are complicated items, and fraud is all around us. Okay, there are 3 stories in the news in the last couple of weeks that are just disgusting in my view. The first being the Anthony Ferrer Timepiece gentleman.
$5 million fraud.
I'm not going to talk about this fraud in great length in the public. Yes. Just not. Yes. We did an episode in our podcast, an hour, where we devoted an hour to telling the full story of our relationship with Timepiece gentlemen, and it's really disgusting, and I'm really upset by the entire thing. I don't care if you're rich or you're poor, you're a victim. If you were a victim, you have every right to be outraged. I know that some people on the internet, and of course I understand the place you're coming from when you say, well, I don't really feel bad for that guy. He lost $300,000. I mean, how much does he have? I'd rather be him than me. I get it. And I bet he gets that too. Right. But that's not how the justice system works, how fraud works. A victim is a victim, and that's it. Like, that's it.
Yes.
Good people were stolen from in at least for $5 million. And that's just what Anthony has admitted to. God knows how much further this goes. At this point, we have no reason to believe it stops there. Right. No real reason. Again, I'm not going to get super into this right here. Go sign up for the Zero. Go join our podcast community. Go take a look. It dropped already. So you can go back and you can go listen to it right now. But I'm not looking to cause a big thing on social media. I'm really, really not. But if you'd like to listen to that podcast, you can go over there and you can listen to it. And that's all well and good. If you do sign up for the Zero, then shoot me a DM and we can have a conversation about it or anything else privately. I'm happy to do that.
The reason, obviously, the Timepiece gentleman is a hot topic for the Zero and everything is because you were in a video with them. I filmed the video. We met them. Literally. We hung out with them. So.
It's really bad. It's really, really bad. And I had a pit in my stomach throughout the entire thing as this began to unravel. Okay, it's really f***ed up. Okay, another example. Maybe you don't feel as bad for the guy, but Adam Levine in the recent Hodinkee video.
Yeah, we have.
There is no reason to believe that the incorrect watches, the Franken watches, the watches that the hundreds, the watches that were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars that he showed off that were not correct and were instead
on a show where you assume you'd be like, I'm actually not going to show them.
They were objectively not correct. I have really no reason to believe that was an accident. I really no reason to believe that he bought those watches that way with full knowledge. It seems as if there was fraud going on with those watches, that he was an unsuspecting buyer. I understand Adam Levine has dozens of millions of dollars. Maybe he has more than $100 million. I have no idea how much he has. And maybe you don't feel bad for him because he has so much money. And I get it. I understand where you're coming from. But the reality is that fraud is bad. Fraud is bad for the community. Fraud is up. Yeah. Period. End. Okay. And if it happened to Adam Levine or it happened to your brother, it's equally up. Okay. And that's the point I'm trying to drive home. The fraud erodes the trust in the community. Okay, and we saw people in the comments section exposing the fraud that were vehemently defending the fraud, trying to kind of gaslight and make it seem like
this is classless. You should put this away. You shouldn't talk about this. You should email him privately.
Which makes it even more disgusting. This sort of like deep state kind of like watch industry, kind of insulating the major dealers from being called out, from exposing their fraud. Up.
There's an incredible amount of money moving, and obviously these are flagship pieces, but that does not mean this dealer is only delivering flagship pieces. They have so much money and so much movement going on that, yes, you saw this happen with Adam Levine, but that is not the point. Of course, it's bad for him, everything like that. He's a victim of fraud, but it's the underground thing that's happening with that one dealer that's not $600,000 worth of watches. It's millions and millions and millions.
Exactly. And not, just to show you that, and this is the three tiers, right? I mean, of people that are victims. The Timepiece gentleman stole $5 million from, yes, some rich people, but also plenty of regular people. Adam Levine clearly is not a regular person. He's a rich person, even I presume even much richer than the guys that were rich that the Timepiece gentleman stole from, right? He's a very rich guy. Okay. And even the higher up you go, you're not immune to this problem, this fraud. Today's video is sponsored by our friends over at Ritual.
Yes, it is. I'm a vegetarian, as you're probably aware. Yes, so I don't eat certain things as vegetarians do. And with that, sometimes I worry, are there gaps in the nutrients that I'm getting?
Are there deficits? Absolutely.
Are there deficits? Ritual swings in, takes care of that entire problem for us.
Exactly right. And while you have all the reason in the world to be conscious of that, and good on you, it's not just vegetarians that can suffer from vitamin deficiencies.
Yeah, exactly. And that is why Ritual has their Essential for Men multivitamin 18+. They also have 50+, but we're not there yet, so we would go 18+. And it fills in all of those gaps.
Ritual steps in where it needs to and helps us with whether it's our heart health, our immuno health, our brain health, or our normal muscle function. Ritual is there to fill in the gaps.
Exactly. And what differentiates Ritual is that they are obsessive about the quality of their ingredients. They're not trying to skimp on anything. They're not trying to save money in different ways. They're making sure that you're getting exactly what you need at the highest quality possible so you feel your best.
I far prefer and will exclusively use Ritual because when I walk into a vitamin store, which is not all that often, I mean, and probably because, it's very off-putting. It's too much information. It's not easy to understand. There's certainly no trust between me and the purveyor of the product, right? Course, Whereas on Ritual, it really is just this kind of one-stop shop for my vitamin health.
10 traceable ingredients that they talk about why we are using these, why we aren't using those, which is exactly what anyone that's reading the back of a pill bottle wants to see.
Exactly, but it's far easier.
And you can get 40% off your first month by going to ritual.com/TheoHarris40.
I highly suggest that you do that. Thanks, Ritual. That's it. Go one notch up.
$2 billion yearly company.
Go to a $2 billion yearly company. Omega themselves, one of the most well-regarded manufacturers of watches in the history of watches, right? Was a victim of incredible fraud recently.
This is to me is the hardest one for the general community because Adam Levine and stuff like that, you have angles of separation or distance between them. Timepiece gentlemen, you may have watched them on YouTube. You may be a little bit closer to this, but Omega and the actual watch manufacturer or a watch manufacturer, you probably relate to closer. You're like, well, I can go into the door and get that watch tomorrow. There was not that drama. Like, of course they're raising their prices, but that's business. This is still like, this is my watch zone. I want to go to the boutique.
Exactly.
Then we had basically the perfect Speedmaster come up for auction, and Omega bought that watch. It was the record-breaking Speedmaster, smashed all the records. Everything about it was perfect. Obviously, we then found out it was too perfect. There is still a lot of controversy around Adam Levine's watches, the intention behind them, and everything like that. Not true with the Omega frauded Speedmaster, because Omega themselves basically were like, no, it's fraud. This was basically the curator of the museum, whoever it may be, committed fraud along with other people, made this perfect watch, and said, at any price, we need to own this watch, made a steal from it.
Omega's own trusted employee, the director of their heritage, literally, their museum, pressured them to buy a watch he knew was fake because he had a back end or a kickback coming, right? Again, maybe you don't feel bad for Omega. They've got billions of dollars. It doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it less wrong. It erodes the trust. It's exactly what it does. Yeah. It makes more people that really could be positive for the community, that could have beautiful collections and be sources of knowledge and great collectors. It makes them say, I mean, if Omega can get robbed, maybe I should just stay out of watches as a whole. Maybe I'll just stay in a community where there's more transparency.
Well, that's the thing. Like, we're talking very high level, but at that event, at that auction, I'm assuming it wasn't just Omega bidding on that watch. There was some guy thinking that is the most beautiful Speedmaster I've ever seen.
And if that happened, would it ever have come to light?
No. Exactly. It wouldn't. Like, how could it?
It's amazing. It's so bad, right? So there's plenty to hate about this community. Believe you me, from the people that are in it sometimes, and I wish they were less common than they are, right? But from the people that are in it, okay. But from those people that are in it, okay, to the widespread fraud and theft. There's so many reasons to stay away. I get it. But there are so many more reasons to stay in the community, to love watches, to fall in love with watches, to follow your passion in watches. And like the former, the latter has two buckets, right? The people.
Yes.
And then the craft itself. Not the fraud, but the craft. The people. We've met so many incredible people in the watch. We'll keep this short, but so many incredible people in the watch business. We just met a beautiful German engineer.
We just met a beautiful German boy.
A German engineer working for Nomos, right?
Yes, Niklas. He was the definition of what you think of when you think of true watch connoisseur, true watch lover.
Yes.
He went from being an engineer to specifying in watches, and now there are other versions of Niklas at different places.
Of course.
But he is in Germany right now on a special project for Nomos, doing exactly what he loves, making a brand better, and he can't wait to show it to you and tell us about it.
And the industry is filled with people like that, people that, good people, that are so enamored by and humbled by the history, the design, the mechanical supremacy, the technology,
Jack,
the design, Jack, our watchmaker. There are, I don't want to make up a number, there's so many people out there that are so beautiful. So to let those rotten apples spoil the whole bunch is ridiculous, right? Pick them and throw them. Pick them and throw them, right? When they're no good, get rid of them, because the rest of the people are they're beautiful and they want to share their passion. And that's how I've made some of my greatest friends, right? Some of my greatest friends, my mentor, right? I mean, this is where you meet, because the watch business or the watch hobby is this intersection of all of these complex and humbling disciplines, and to meet someone that is also enamored by them and shares your passion, be it for history or mechanics or whatever, it's the most beautiful, starting point for a relationship, for a friendship, right? And the reality is, everyone knows when you make a new watch friend, watches are always a part of your relationship, of course. But the reality is, if you go out to dinner, you go out for drinks, maybe you're talking about watches for a good part of the conversation, but It's not the whole one, because you can't help but to develop a friendship, right? And if we think about history in a similar, if our appreciation for history is similar, and neither of us is insecure, and both we're trying to figure this out and share our passion, the odds are the natural progression is that we're going to have a lot in common, and we're going to respect each other's points of view, and because by our nature, we are that sort of person, right? The sort of person that is humbled by intelligence or humbled by history. And that is prime character for relationship building. And it's one of the most beautiful things about this industry.
Agreed.
Then the second is the craft itself. Right, and we're going to list a couple of brands here that we were just kind of thinking about just this morning. We're talking about Zenith. We're talking about Swatch. We're talking about Christopher Ward, which is an unsuspected source, maybe.
Yeah.
We're talking about Furlan Mari, another unsuspected source. I didn't want to just say Rolex Patek. I could write poems about Rolex Patek all day for you guys, right? But these are a little bit more off the beaten path, and maybe you want to start off with I don't know, with Christopher Ward or with Furlan Mari, but
yeah, I'm going to put both of those in this camp of the new generation of watchmakers. And I don't mean in terms of Philippe Dufour, or I guess we'll get into that in a second. But this new generation of Christopher Ward's like, but we're going to do a chiming complication in a watch for, was it under $5,000?
Yeah, under $5,000. Yeah.
When previously it wasn't like a big secret or anything, but I just always figured that would be a lot more to pull off.
Of course.
And all of a sudden you're opening up the watch community to craftsmanship, and you're saying to other brands like, hey, that did well. It's pretty niche, but like, let's do this.
It's an unsuspecting brand to say, hey, we can deliver something really innovative to this community, for the watch lovers. We're not going to gouge them because we love our community. We're trying to build a brand and build rapport. Well, what more can you ask for? That's the most beautiful thing possible.
Then you have Furlan Mari, which let me read this to you because this is probably the most 2023 thing I've ever read. Every 2 years, Only Watch, the charitable auction for which brands produce one-off timepieces. Only Watch, whenever it's a charity event, brands always produce crazy timepieces. This year, one of the biggest surprises came from Furlan Mari. The brand that began as a Kickstarter project in 2021 had been known for its modestly priced homages to vintage watches. This year, they introduced a secular perpetual calendar. That is insane.
The sheer will, right, to say, I'm going to push myself so far out of the box. I'm known for manufacturing really cool $1,000 or whatever, $800, homages to vintage Patek, which is great. And that serves a beautiful point in the watch community as well. But then you're just taken totally by surprise, right? Never underestimate someone with a passion and with ability.
There's
right?
a force behind this brand. And while we thought we understood the brand's goal, we don't. We don't anymore.
And it's full of surprises, right? This technology that you never would have seen. I mean, that to me is a beautiful thing. And it's not just a beautiful thing from the brands you expect it from, right? This whole landscape is always changing and rising and falling. And some brands they get a little bit lazy. And then there's another opportunity for another brand. I mean, look at Tag Heuer, a brand that has struggled for years to produce watches that watch lovers love.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, maybe the mass market enjoys them, sure. But Tag Heuer has had a kind of a renewed dedication to manufacturing watches that are really just primo, right? Their Carrera has been restored, in my view, right? I mean, the quality of that watch has not been this commendable in decades.
Innovative, too.
In decades. It's amazing to see that. I mean, it's a service to the community. Of course it's for profit, but it doesn't mean you can't be doing good for the community because you're making money as well. You're delivering more to the buyer. That's a service to the buyer, is it not?
Yeah, no, it is.
I mean, and it's a beautiful thing to know that this brand, with all the power in the world, that could chill forever, probably, says, you know what? No, let's put some muscle into delivering something real for these guys. And they're already making hundreds of millions of dollars. They don't need to do that.
Exactly.
That's a beautiful thing.
Agreed.
What about Swatch? What about G-Shock? I mean, talk about that.
G-Shock for a lot of people and Swatch is really, I guess, either camp is where everything starts.
Yeah.
And they still have iconic designs. They still have fantastic watches, a fantastic story. And you'll always see even the highest of the highest level collectors still be like, well, yeah, I wear my G-Shock if I'm doing this or if I'm doing that. That's a cool legacy to have in and of itself.
It's amazing it's back to humility. That's the breeding ground for real positivity in any space, but in the watch space specifically, it's like, yeah, I've got a Patek Perpetual at home, but I don't know. The new neon Swatch is cool. I bought it because it's cool, and maybe it'll be like my thing with my son, and that's beautiful. And it's back to your roots, right? That's kind of what we've always said about Swatch.
My Timex Expedition, I remember wearing it to prom. I wore it as a camp counselor. I wore it to everything. Not the most dressy watch, but I wore it in any situation like it was the perfect watch for that situation. Yeah. Now I know so much that I'm like, well, what would I really wear an Explorer to a wedding?
Exactly.
It's like, come on.
Right, but it's back to the roots. It's kind of saying, yeah, I did the whole competitive watch collecting thing for a while. I mean, maybe I played that game and that's fun. Now I've kind of gone back and said, well, I'm going to buy what I like. And some of the things that you like are really high quality and they're really incredible, like your Zeniths or whatever it is. They're incredible. But it's also like, well, what I like is not just incredible quality. It's also fun. Right. It's also my childhood.
Yeah.
And that's why I wear my Swatch, which I think is a beautiful, it's one of the watches in my collection, my two Swatches. The one that I first started collecting, my first watch, my Athens Olympics, and now my Neon. And I have them side by side on my dresser next to my date chest.
Sleeping together.
And I'm like, that's watch collecting. I have better watches, but these are the watches that I want to see when I wake up. And these are the watches that I really like they really make me feel nice. And I wear them out all the time. And sometimes when people will see me, in the city, because I wear the watches in the city a lot because I'm afraid of being robbed. When I'm in the city, you're like, you couldn't help it, could you? When I'm in the city, someone will say, oh, what's on their wrist? I'm like, oh, it's my Swatch.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's hysterical.
People are plugging their ears because the movement's so loud.
They're like, that's hysterical. Like,
yeah, right.
Yeah, maybe I should go back to my roots a little bit. Maybe my anxiety level should go down, that I'm not just competing all the time. Because if Christian's not competing and he's in the business literally for a living, like maybe I don't need to either. That's a beautiful thing, right? These brands represent such beauty.
And that's where I want to talk about Zenith for a second, because if you were to ask me, these are all different questions. I want to get a watch out of an alternative material for a fair price. I want to get a historical chronograph that is a smaller size than all these other things. Or I want to see a brand that's really pushing things on an innovation level in terms of design, in terms of materials and everything. I would point you to Zenith.
And not gouging you on the money.
And not gouging you, yes. I would point you to Zenith every single time.
Yeah.
I think Zenith doesn't get enough credit for really pushing things forward and then watching the rest of the watch world take the credit for it.
100%. Zenith, again, it's their price point that is incredible to me. It's the facts themselves are amazing. Zenith makes incredible watches. A lot of people make incredible watches, right? They're not the only ones.
Yeah.
But then I say, wow, their market positioning is so humble. Their market positioning is so consumer. It's in the service of the consumer, right? That is
first service free. You get a service with the purchase of
exactly.
the watch.
That is amazing to me, right? That's why Zenith, I think, is in the words of some people in the comments, everything right with the watch world, right? That is beautiful. And again, we just listed a couple of brands here today, and there are so many more. Again, I love Patek and I love Rolex. There's so many reasons to love these brands and so many other brands too, be it Atelier de Chronometrie in Barcelona, be it Recep Recepi, be it Philippe Dufour, be it Langenzona, Nomos. There's so many brands that you can look at and say, oh my God, there's so many reasons to love them. No doubt. But Michael and I were just having a conversation before this, and we were just like, God, there's so much bad shit in the news right now. There's so much fraud. There's so much theft. But I guess we shouldn't be blinded to the reality that, all in all, the watch community is one of the most incredible consumer communities out there, and we're both glad to be a part of it, and we're glad that you're a part of it, and we want to paint a full picture for you so we don't feel like we're deceiving you and dragging you into a community under false pretenses. But
yes.
But it's beautiful, and I think that I think you ought to stay around. Right? I think you ought to stay around. So if you like this video, like it, subscribe to our channel. And if you like more content from us, head on over to our podcast down below in the description at The Zero. We release podcast episodes every single week. I'm interviewing different people, be it Michael or be it my dad with Liquoron, or different watch collectors and watch dealers that have been around for 30, 40 years, that know everything about the trade. And frankly, in those interviews, I push them to be a little bit more honest than they're used to. Yeah. But we can do that there because it's a private community. So I hope that you go join. And if you do join, shoot me a DM. I'd love to say hi, and I can't talk to everyone on the YouTube. It's just not possible, but I'd love to chat over there, and it's just more feasible. So I hope to see you on over The Zero, and that's it. Thanks for watching.